Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Isaiah Mariner. I am the director of First Robotics Competition with First Chesapeake. And tonight we are having a wonderful panel. Welcome to STEM Journeys from Students to Professionals. Joining us tonight, we also have Shelly Stoddard, the director of FTC with First Chesapeake. And I would like to just go ahead and get into the mix and introduce our panelists for this evening. First up, I would like to introduce Charles Scaife. Charles is a scientist and research manager in the hydropower program at the Department of Energy. There, he manages scientists and engineers researching how climate change is impacting rivers and streams and what that means for clean energy produced from hydroelectric facilities. He found his way to Washington, D.C. through NOAA's NOS Marine Policy Fellowship, a year-long program meant to expose early career scientists to policymaking. Prior to DOE, he conducted climate change research across the Mid-Atlantic in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and earned his PhD in environmental sciences from the University of Virginia. Charles has a love for the outdoors, and in his free time, you'll find Charles trail running, cycling around the city, or reading in the park. We also have Alex Johnson. Alex is a Science, Technology, and Policy ORISE Fellow in the Department of Energy in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Within this office, she works in the Office of Integrated Strategies on Diversity and STEM portfolio with team lead Terrence Mosley. It's a great guy. She previously received her PhD in synthetic chemistry from Johns Hopkins University and her BA in biochemistry from Vassar College. Her main interests are science education and science communication and DEIA initiatives in STEM. In her free time, she performs in community musical theater, plays videos, and takes care of her cat, Reese. Last but not least, we are also joined by Natalie Alvarado. She is currently an Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy EERE Science, Technology, and Policy Fellow with the US DOE, Department of Energy, for everybody that is not used to acronyms. And she works in the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Technologies Office. She started her time with the DOE as a GEM Fellow, working with the Safety Codes and Standards team. As an EERE fellow, she is working jointly with the Environmental Justice and SCS teams. Natalie is a Latina, first-generation college student, and recently received her master's degree from UC Berkeley in civil and environmental engineering. In her free time, she loves to paint and listen to music. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you for taking your time out to be here with us. Thank you. I would like to give the floor first to Natalie. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do with the DOE?
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'm Natalie Alvarado. So at DOE, I just kind of transitioned into this new full-time role after graduating with my master's. So right now I'm kind of working on how do we best get people together, developers and communities to put in hydrogen like across the country because there's this huge plan to put hydrogen like fuel cells, hydrogen cars instead of like electric, hydrogen, just different types of energy systems and things like that. So you need like a hydrogen gas station or something. And so, how are we going to do that and implement that and give people the resources to implement that in a safe way and then also like an equitable way and not do anything, do any past harms that we have currently done or have done in the past in the energy industry. So, yeah, I'm kind of working through that and providing educational resources and things like that. So, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Thank you. Alex, could you tell us a little bit about what you do with the DOE?
Yeah, so I am an ORISE fellow that started last year, and within my office, we focus on the clean energy transition, but assisting the technical side of the transition. So communities, diversity and education, good jobs and workforce development, so on and so forth. I specifically help focus on the DEIA and STEM portfolio, which is actually how I met Natalie, because she was a GEM fellow, and our portfolio helped to onboard and interview GEM fellows for different tech offices. So yeah, we work on a few different things, from prizes with minority serving institutions to trying to help set up workshops with local schools and communities, and really anything that helps bring a more diverse body into the clean energy workforce and community.
All right. I want to be like y'all when I grow up. Charles, can you tell us a little bit about what you do with the DOE as a researcher?
Yeah, thanks, Isaiah. I know this is a pretty amazing panel so far. Yeah, so I am a physical scientist. I work in the Water Power Technologies Office. That's just a fancy way of saying, if you can create energy from water, then we work in that field. So, marine tidal energy, using waves to capture renewable energy. Where I work is in the hydropower program. So thinking about dams and water flowing through dams and how that produces energy. But my background is really as an environmental scientist and hydrologist, so working in water resources. And one of the big focuses of my research back in the day was really thinking about how climate change impacts water. And now at DOE, I manage a research program on how climate impacts water that impacts renewable energy produced from hydropower. And so the program that I manage, it looks across the entire US to understand how climate change is impacting how renewable energy is produced from hydropower facilities.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have some of the best and brightest with us tonight. I am honored to be here with all of you. Thank you. Charles, you mentioned something, and it reminds me of my time as a teacher. And I taught physics at the school I'm in right now. And one of the things that I remember a lot of kids saying coming through school was like, earth science is pointless. Oh, you laughed. All right, I would like to start there tonight. I'm sorry, that hit home. My mom's an earth science teacher too, and I know more now, but can you tell us now? I want to get into like your journey. You went into environmental sciences, hydrologist. When you were in school, did you see yourself going down this path? Like when you were in middle school, high school, when you started out as a young man running around, were you thinking about doing this?
I mean, that's just the thing, right? I was a little kid running around. I loved to play outside. I mean, my parents told me stories about how, as soon as the sun would rise, I was out the door and I was outside until, they were calling me home for dinner at night. And I think that love for being outside really transitioned into like a career for me. I didn't see myself ever becoming, a water person, a water scientist. I knew, I told a joke in college to all my friends, like, I'm going to go to Brazil and save the rainforest. That never happened. But yeah, I mean, I think the transition's really kind of slow, right? You kind of find your interests, taking chemistry courses, taking physics courses. And I think for me, I really saw how chemistry and physics and mathematics really fit into the environment, right? Like, a lot of our environment is described by chemical reactions, by physics, and it was seeing the application, in the real world that became really cool and really stuck with me. And so as I got older, I wanted to pursue, a career in doing that sort of thing. And, in grad school, I became a computer modeler. I was running, climate change models, environmental models that really have physics and mathematics built into them, right? And did I ever think I would find myself in renewable energy after that? Also, no. I thought I'd become a professor one day, and then I found that you could take all of these physical models, all of like the math and science, and you could really apply it to something like renewable energy that can have impact on the ground. And so, I mean, I think the short answer to your question is no, I didn't see myself, but it's a slow evolution, right? You take something that you love and learn from, and it evolves into a career.
I love it, man. I love it. It makes me happy to hear about childhood interests playing a part in how your adulthood ended up turning. And I think sometimes that gets lost, right? But let's keep it rolling. So, Alex, I'm gonna go to you this time. Same kind of question. When you were coming up as an aspiring young lady, did you imagine that you would be where you are now?
No, but that's because I wouldn't know the title of my job at the time as a kid. There was one point I thought I was going to be a fashion designer, and then I was going to be a musician, and then I was going to be an engineer, and now I'm a chemist, and that's where I should be. But I think it's just my path was really driven by the mentors and the people around me. I knew I liked understanding, and I liked that chemistry, specifically organic chemistry, really gave me the means to understand everything around me, and that happens in a lot of different majors as well, but chemistry really clicked for me in that way, where I'm like, okay, everything makes sense and I can kind of do anything with synthetic chemistry, at least in the way that I am interested in. So I went to college for biochemistry. I liked the chemistry of living organisms, and I liked that there was a lot of organic chemistry involved. I went to grad school for synthetic chemistry specifically, and I did stuff with like silicon materials, semiconductive materials, so on and so forth. And then when I was looking for jobs, I actually was interested in STEM education. And then I saw that there was an ORISE fellowship for science, technology, and policy that basically described, you can work on diversity and inclusion initiatives. You can also kind of touch on STEM education, and you can work with people in different communities and do this all from a federal position. Well, I'm not a fed because I'm a fellow, but from a government, workspace. And I just didn't know you could get paid to do that. And that was really cool. So I kind of just took it one step at a time, I guess. And I just ended up having mentors that were like, hey, have you ever thought of doing this? And I was like, no, let me look into it. And then it was a great suggestion. So all to say exposure is really important. And I end up here.
I love that. Shout out to the village. I think it's important for us to have some people around us. So that brings up something good. I want to ask you all, Alex, thank you for bringing that up. I'm gonna come to this a little bit later, but y'all remind me. I want you to tell us about some of the mentors that you all have had over our lives, because that does make a really big difference. And it's some other questions. So you said you're working a lot of DEIA, the policy initiatives, Alex. What types of policy initiatives are on your heart right now?
So my I guess my personal interest, a lot of it is in education and exposure, particularly in the earlier phases of, I guess, a person's career path. So high school, middle school, college, community college or trade, early on when people are, the most wide-eyed and flexible, and you can kind of figure out how do I get them to see the interest in the clean energy field or whatever field. And I work with Terrence a lot on we focus a lot on minority serving institutes and the communities around those minority serving institutes, because it's a good network, because they're networked with their areas and we can connect to the schools more easily, but we'd like to expand in any way we can. So we focus a lot on trying to get people exposed or educated and interested in clean energy, particularly people who have been overlooked over the last, forever. And I feel like with clean energy being such a rising, industry, economy, so on and so forth, this is a great place to tap into a community that seems to not be given the hand up in a lot of other places. And it's like, okay, well, here's a place where we're going to welcome you and show you the ropes, and you can get, the same advantages that other people have been getting. So yeah.
I'm glad to hear that's the kind of work you're doing, because we definitely need it. Natalie, all right, it's your turn. Can you tell us a little bit about your path to where you are right now? Were there any childhood interests that helped lead you here, or did you just end up like somebody introduced you to something one day and it changed your life? How did this play out?
It was, I've had a very different path. I think I keep changing my mind, or I kept changing my mind, which I think is good. So I think like Alex, just taking it step by step. Really funny, Alex, I also wanted to be a fashion designer. So that was like my whole thing. I don't think my parents actually thought I was going to do it. because they were just like math, science, become a doctor. But like I was there in my room drawing little like sketches of, yeah, just different fashion designer things. But yeah, so in high school, I didn't think I was going to be an engineer. I had no clue what I wanted to do, very indecisive. And then my brother became an engineer, and he's 2 years older than me. So he went to school for engineering. And then I'm like, it looks kind of cool. And I had a really good physics teacher. So I'll talk about that more later. And he was kind of a mentor to push me into doing engineering. And yeah, I've always, honestly, since childhood, liked math and like the challenge of it and being able to like finish a super long problem. And afterwards, you're like, wow, I did that. So that was like something that I think pushed me into going into it. So I went to undergrad and I first studied electrical and computer engineering for a year and a half, dropped out of that and switched over to environmental engineering because I just felt like it wasn't for me and everyone was telling me push through. But then I was like, wait, afterwards, when I graduate, I'm going to have a job in this. And if I don't like it now in the school, I'm not going to like it for the rest of my life. So yeah, that was my kind of turning point. Went to environmental engineering and then kind of got into like the energy field and renewable energy and things like that. And then went to go get my PhD at UC Berkeley. And then I worked as a GEM fellow. So I was in the middle of my master's. I guess I just finished my master's, but and then I started becoming a GEM fellow at the Department of Energy. And I started doing work that I guess the whole point of me doing the PhD was to do this type of work and do like energy justice and work on these like actual issues right now. And then I was like, oh, I'm actually able to do that right now. And I don't think I need a PhD. And I didn't really want to go the academic route. So I just kind of left the PhD, graduated with my master's, and now I'm here. So lots of changes, but it's kind of every time just been like thinking about myself and what I want and in my future. Even if everyone around you is like, I don't think this is a good idea, like it works out if you know, just like confident with yourself. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great right there, man. So I had a question. You said you are a GEM fellow. What does that mean? You were in that GEM fellow program. What is that exactly? And then I got to follow up about ORISE.
Yeah, so the GEM Fellowship is for minority graduate students in like STEM. And so it provides them with an internship over the summer in between either like your master's or PhD. And so it's really good. It helps you with funding and things like that and introduces you to either industry or the government and things. And yeah, so that was cool.
All right. And now on that ORISE fellow, so Alex and Natalie, both of you fall in that category, right? What is that exactly? Because coming out of school, did you know about like fellowships in high school? I know I didn't. Like coming out in high school, middle school, this was strange to me. I knew about jobs, I heard about internships, but then you start seeing all the other parts of the world. So what is the ORISE fellow exactly?
Alex, do you want to touch on that? I just became one. So
yeah. So an ORISE fellow, I would say, is more similar to, say, an entry-level position / contractor role compared to like an internship, which I thought I didn't know what a fellowship in the government was going to be like. And the great thing about it is you can kind of get your feet wet without necessarily having all the same responsibilities and pressures of like a federal employee, but you get to work alongside them on the same projects, on the same initiatives, and you get to contribute just as much with the team leads and your colleagues. And it's a really great way to learn about, say, a position in the government, like in the Department of Energy. When I was coming out of grad school, I didn't know about ORISE specifically until I was looking for jobs. I think that's also something we're working on, is advertising it more, because it's a great opportunity for people to join into, because it's given me a lot of exposure to an office that I thought a lot of chemists or biologists or whoever would basically go into the government and do research. And I was not specifically interested in continuing bench work. So it was interesting to see that you have more scientists in policy positions that aren't, say, like on Capitol Hill, but are actually working within the agencies with other scientists, other policymakers, whatever, so on and so forth. Like you get to really be in the middle of that network. But yeah, it's great.
Cool. Thank you. I feel like it'll be important for some more of our youth to learn about what these opportunities are. That way they can look for them once they get their chance.
They also pay well.
So what's up, my bad?
I said they also pay well. I should put that out there because post grad school, that was definitely something that was important to me, and it definitely paid a lot better than other things I was looking at. I love what I do, but it was also great that they pay you like a regular employee.
That is important. We need to live. It's like I love what I do, but if I can't live with what I'm doing, then why am I still doing this, right? Because it just makes it all hard. So I kind of want to pivot a little bit, and I would like to talk about your background, like what life was like for you all when you were younger, because I think sometimes some people have a silver spoon type of situation. Some people have the exact opposite, however you want to phrase that in today's climate. But what was it like for you in order for you to be where you are now? Because I work at like a urban school district, and I think it would be beneficial for folks to understand just different starting points to different paths, different starting points to different levels in life. If y'all understand my question, that makes sense. So if Charles will bring it to you this time, man, what was it like for you coming up? Were you talked about having mentors and things? Did you have to find them, or was that in your home? What was your upbringing like to help you get here?
Mhm. Yeah, it, it's a big question.
My
um,
bad. If it's too heavy, please we can keep it light
no,
right
it's
now.
not.
But
No, I think it's an important question, right? But it's not one that I get to talk about often, and so I'm happy to share it. But yeah, I grew up in a military family. So I moved about every 2 to 3 years. We never had like a permanence in any one place. Um, that meant I got to see a lot of the country and at a very young age. Um, but I think my family's reasonings for doing that was really to escape some of the conditions that they lived in growing up. And my parents were really young at the time; they didn't go to college, and so it was sort of challenging, right, to see myself going to college or to see myself even thinking about becoming a scientist, right? When you have parents who kind of, well, one who's a soldier, and then another one who kind of works hourly wage jobs. And so it was really hard to have sort of that mentor or model, at least within my family. And so it really wasn't until I got to high school that the potential of going to college even kind of materialized for me. I actually thought I would join the military before going to college. And so I was really between the two. And I ended up getting into college and attending. And I think that's where I really started to find, I think, my path towards the environmental sciences. But it was a struggle, right? I think going to college, you start to see a lot of people. I mean, that was my first time like encountering the wealth of people the wealth that people have that attend college, right? And I had never experienced that before. I'd kind of grown up in military families and in military environments. A lot of people were like young parents. They didn't have much. We all kind of lived on base, and so it was very, no one had a nice house. Everyone had government housing, and I think it took me until later in college finding the person that would go on to become my grad school advisor. I think he saw something in me, and it was really just that I was interested, right? I asked a lot of questions. He was like, I'm looking to hire an intern for the summer. And I said, well, I need a job. I need something that pays. So sure, I'll do it. Um, and it turned into, a graduate degree. And then it turned into another graduate degree. And I think it was that advisor, meeting him as an undergrad and continuing to work with him through grad school, that really showed me the power of mentorship. And mentorship in a way of like showing the capabilities that you have that you might not necessarily recognize, right? And so he saw things in me that I didn't necessarily see. And, I still have mentors today. I actually met with one last Friday, and I had struggles, right? I'm a federal employee. I'm contributing to a pension, but like I still struggle, right? I'm still trying to figure things out. And I went to her and I was, telling her about my struggles. And, I think the power of mentorship is that person being able to show you something that you struggle to see in yourself, right? And so she helped me through, just something last week of, what, you're amazing and great, and you're going to do this. So I think that's kind of like the long sort of trajectory of kind of how I got here and my background, but also kind of the leveraging of mentorship to get there.
Got you. Thank you. I feel like that military life part is very relatable. And we're in Virginia. It's a lot of people that are in that situation. So yeah, I'm glad that you were still able to find your path and you had some people that could pour into you. Let's see. So Alex, let's go to you this time. So what was it like for you coming up from a youth to where you are now?
Yeah, and I'll probably touch on some of the mental health topics I talked about in the first Chesapeake Women in STEM panel that happened last week in Virginia. So came from a second, yeah, I'm a second generation. My grandparents came from the Caribbean, so as Natalie kind of pointed out before, like Dr. Lawyer Engineer was, immediately on, the pathway forward, which was, I understand it was out of sake of security and, safety for their future generations. So college was never a question, I guess. It was just always like, you're going to college and you're going to grad school. So I knew that much. I didn't know I was going to get a PhD until the few months before I applied for a PhD. But I think it was a matter of, came up in primarily white institutes, which is, I love the people that were around me, but it was just hard to see myself in positions where I didn't see people like me. So I didn't really think about, say, being a professor or, going into a government position because I wasn't interacting with those types of people. And as I got up, I had mentors that even if they weren't just like me, they found people who were like me that I could talk to and kind of figure out what's going to be best for my life and my trajectory. And I think because I really like those interactions with my mentors, I wanted to be a mentor myself, which kind of pushed me down STEM education. I loved seeing the aha moment in students with classes like organic chemistry, which are notoriously feared by some people, but I think it's actually a great course. I just think it's one of those things that when you have the right, I think really a lot of, I guess, tough pathways are really determined more by the boundaries in the way as opposed to the innate ability of the person going on that path. And I think when I got to grad school, I realized that my mental health had a limit. So I couldn't just push myself to, the end of the earth to do whatever it was that I was doing, because I burnt out at one point and I had been in unhealthier circumstances. And it wasn't until I had an amazing PI who I honestly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without her, Professor Skalson from Johns Hopkins. She really got me back on track and was like, you can't keep going like this. You have to take care of yourself if you want to keep going. And, the healing process can be hard when you're kind of used to the going, which I know a lot of people in STEM have been used to for the past generations. And I'm really glad to see younger generations are taking their mental health more seriously and are thinking about, okay, I want this career pathway, but I also want to be happy and I want to be satisfied with the life that I have. And I think my trajectory has been based on wanting to make sure that those people get the opportunities that they're seeking in a healthy and equitable manner. So it's kind of led me to where I am now.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you for adding in that mental health piece. Outside of what I do with FIRST, I really care about mental health. I'm an advocate and I do other things. So I think it's important for us to talk about it. And sometimes it's hard conversations that need to be had, but we still need to have them. Now, the objective of this panel isn't about mental health, so I won't like stay on it as much right now. But whenever it comes up, I'm always there because I believe it is important. And I think that all of us at some point, we need somebody to talk to. Like Charles, you mentioned having a mentor, saying it was a lot going on. It's the same kind of situation, right? We need to learn how to let some of that steam off and let that vent go so that we can get the help we need and heal. So thank you, Alex, for bringing that up, because we need that in today's world. Too many of the kids are hurting. All right. Pivot. Natalie, your turn. Your childhood to adolescence pathway to getting here. What was that like for you?
Yeah. So I kind of have something similar to Alex with like the not burning out myself, but we'll start at the beginning, I guess. So my parents, my dad is from Mexico City and my mom's from Chicago. Both of them just like working class jobs. My dad's a plumber and my mom's a waitress. And growing up, we would like, instead of reading us bedtime stories, she would like after work be like, okay, help me count my tips. And then we got into math and she's like, all right, the math is where it's at. Like you guys need to get your education. You need to learn math, learn science, to live a comfortable life. And so that's like kind of where all of us, me and my three siblings, landed because they kind of pushed us into that. But we also liked it. And I'm glad I went into it. So that was kind of that. It was different types of mentorship from my parents. It was less of like the academic, like, oh, help me with this application or something, but more of like, you are a hard worker, you come from hard workers, like you can do this, you can do anything if you just like put your mind to it. And so that was kind of like always the mentorship that I got. But then that kind of goes into the burnout phase, which I also had to face. So like pushing myself so much because I knew I could do it. But then I had to take a step back and realize like, okay, but sometimes you don't just have to work nonstop to get some career objective, like also take care of yourself. And that was kind of something a little like not foreign to my parents, but kind of because they've always had to just like work really, really hard. And it's like, they don't get just like a little break like I am in school or something. So that was something I had to relearn and teach myself too, but also I had good communities. So in undergrad, I was with the McNair Scholars. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but they, it helps like underrepresented students get into grad school, and they became my best friends. And it was just this group of people that I still talk to today that all like came from similar backgrounds, and we all just like really bonded over that and got each other in different ways. So I think it's really important to find your communities, and that is your mentorship and that is your support, like both ways too. And yeah. I think you're muted. You're muted, Isaiah.
I'm doing too much at once. I'm sorry. Alex, Natalie, y'all mentioned something that I would like to ask, and Charles, you may have experience with this as well. That pressure from your parents to be a certain type of thing. How did you all deal with that? Like, I think a lot of us deal with it in different ways, but how did you all deal with that pressure? Like, did you just acquiesce? Okay, mom, I'm gonna go do the thing. Or, I mean, Natalie, you mentioned, you saying like, I kind of loved it, so that helps. But how did that affect y'all?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it, but I also saw security in engineering, and I saw like, okay, job security, financial stability, and I think that's something that was really important to me. Just like seeing what not being financially stable, how your life could turn out like that. So I think that was like a really big thing, and then it kind of drew me into it, and I found my little interests and niches through that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I would say I do love my family, and I'm not the person I am without them, and they have definitely been at the cornerstone of my support system for a long time. I think it was just a different level of expectations that maybe, like as Charles was speaking about, you go to some colleges, and I I guess I didn't realize that there were some people who went to college for fun. Like they went because they could, and they didn't really, like, and it's fine for them. Everyone do what they want with their life. But I think everything I did, it was always under the scope of like, there's too much at stake if you don't succeed or you don't get there. And I know with my family, I know all they wanted was for me not to go through the things that they had to go through. And sometimes it can be hard at first to be like, hey, what if I just shift a little bit? And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know if that's going to be good for you in the long run. But I think as I got older, I got better at being like, hey, I can still be successful and stable and happy and do this. And I know that was kind of what the government position for a little bit, because they knew about federal positions and I actually really liked them, but they didn't know what it would be like without having the bench work involved. And when I started talking more about, okay, so I'm actually working in these offices and I'm doing science policy and I'm doing all these things that I had done a lot of advocacy work before. And it's like, I'm doing kind of the same things. And I think it was also coming from a time when you were protesting or advocating, it was really a lot of people doing things in their own time against whatever system that they were in. So I think they were uncertain at first of like what it was that I was doing. I'm like, oh no, it's a very like, more of an official, and it's like a large team of people who are working on the initiatives that maybe types of things you had done when you were younger, but we've advanced a lot now where now we're like getting paid to do it and we're working across different groups and different alliances to do these same things. And overall, they're very happy for me now. I think it's just now that I am at, I guess, more at the top end in the mentor space, I can help people who are coming up and show that there are other ways to go get what you want without having to go through the most expensive, most obstacle filled pathways to get there. So yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I guess, well, Charles, did you have anything to add about that pressure from the top on you, or different situation?
Not too much to add. I actually didn't have much of the pressure. My parents, I think the only thing my parents wanted from me was to have a job. They told me at 18 I would have to move out, and if I were to stay, I would have to have a job. And so I think they gave me a lot of tough love in the like, you'll figure it out, because we did. But again, I didn't really have a blueprint for like what higher education would look like. And so, yeah, they couldn't really pressure, me taking the SAT because they had never taken like a standardized test like that before, right? And so the pressure really came from like self-motivation, which I think is really challenging to try to find as a young person. Like being self-motivated and staying self-motivated is so challenging. I mean, I struggle with it today, right? Maybe this is speaking to some of the burnout that Natalie and Alex had brought up, but yeah.
Man, well, thank you. That's a good pivot, because I wanted to ask you all next about challenges that you've had to overcome. I know we've talked about a few of them so far, but are there any notable challenges that you've had that we didn't really touch on yet? The mental health piece came up, and in college, I think that's really key. I definitely needed to go to counseling when I was in college. I wouldn't have made it through if I didn't have people that pushed me to go get some help like that. So from my experience, that was key. Are there other challenges that you all experienced that you were able to overcome? Because you are, from our perspective, and Shelly, I think you would agree with me on this, you all are successful individuals at this point in your lives, right? And if nobody else is giving you your flowers, I want to do that tonight. I know Valentine's was yesterday, but I want to give you your flowers because y'all are successful people. Y'all are doing things that are wonderful and worth striving for. What challenges did you overcome to make it to this point, though?
I guess I will say one thing that no one really told me about was, besides mental health, which is an obvious one, and unfortunately having been through some toxic spaces, also physical health. I had some health issues that I didn't anticipate. I mean, no one anticipates getting sick or getting injured or whatnot. But in grad school in particular, I think because the space is starting to change, but I think the salaries and the work hours are based on people being healthy 100% of the time and nothing ever happens to them. And, I've had friends who were diabetic, had friends who had chronic illnesses, had friends who had injuries, and just seeing how that really derailed some of their plans. And it's one of those things where it just reminds you that you can't always, you can't control everything. And I think that's something I had a hard time with, is that sometimes things are going to happen and that's perfectly normal. I think there are expectations that, everything that happens to you that's bad is something that's within your control and you could have stopped. And really, that's not always the case. And I think when I could realize that sometimes there are going to be ebbs and flows in your pathway, and if you're in an environment that does not allow for those ebbs and flows, then maybe it's not the right environment for you to be in. And I think that was a hard pill to swallow for a while when I was younger, if that makes sense.
It's a major growth point. Natalie, any other notable challenges that you remember overcoming on your journey here?
Yeah, I was gonna drop out of engineering. I was gonna drop out completely. I got there at freshman year. I just think I wasn't fully prepared, like a lot of my classmates were, for how hard these STEM classes were. And my first physics class, and I loved physics in high school. It was one of my favorite classes. I failed that class, and it was really embarrassing. And I remember I didn't tell anyone. I tried to hide it so much. People were like, "Wait, didn't you have this last semester?" I was like, "No." No, I didn't. And I don't know why I felt so ashamed, because it's not shameful to fail a class. It has nothing to do with you as a person or anything about your value. It's literally just oh, that happened. Let me retake it. Don't fail classes. Try not to, because that's extra money. But if it happens, it's not the end of the world. And I think at that point, being just going to college and being away from home and just being around all these really, really smart people, I felt like it was the end of the world and I wasn't going to get this degree. So even if you fail a few classes, just try to find help in some way. I went to an academic counselor that the school had, and she helped me with ways to study and just tried to switch things up, but there's no shame in it. And and I'm glad I did not quit.
Perseverance. I really like something you just said here, though. You said just because you fail a class doesn't mean you have no value. It doesn't diminish your value as a person. Going into college, I think that's really important, because sometimes, kids, you come up, high school is easy. You got A's the whole way through. You never really had to try. You get to college, and now things are real. It's hard. First time ever. You really got to put in that work. You really have to study, and sometimes it doesn't work. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a good tack on with the mental health piece. Charles, you led us into the challenges, but is there any other challenges that you remember overcoming on your path here?
I mean, I don't know that there's much to add that Natalie and Alex haven't already covered, but one of the things I will say is that a lot of the challenges that you face as a young person, they feel like the worst thing ever, right? Insurmountable. You'll never get over them. But you will, and they're not. They turn out to be not the worst things ever. They turn out to be your greatest learning moments. I think one of my greatest learning moments was the comfort with leaving academia, right? Being comfortable with closing a door. That's a hard thing to learn, right? To closing an opportunity. But I think over time you start to learn that when an opportunity closes, another opportunity opens. So whether that's failing out of a course or pivoting your career or changing your major, it feels like the biggest decision of your life. But just think of how many opportunities open in those moments. And I think we lose sight of that often. And that's something I have to remind myself all the time. I'm having a huge career decision, but I can do it for 5 years. And if I hate it, I can do something else.
As a young person, 5 years sounds like a very long time. Now that I'm at this point, it's not. So 5 years goes by very quickly once you get out of school. Man, I appreciate the wonderful insight that you all have been adding tonight. Thank you so much for that. As we start winding down here, Uh, are there is there any advice that you would like to give to anybody watching, anybody that may watch this later? Any advice you would like to give to some of our youth? And I guess we'll start. Alex, I see you. Uh,
I wanted to go off what Charles said. I spoke about this last week about learning to let go, and it kind of goes in the same thing. And it was multifaceted, where I had to learn to let go of a lot of things. One of the biggest challenges was learning to let go of the image of yourself that you've been holding on to for years. And that might mean, you're not going down a pathway that you thought you wanted to go down, and you see it as a failure. And it's not a failure. It's just that you're just changing your mind. And I feel like if you can start getting into as a more of an older adult, you can get into the framework of, I'm not failing just because I'm doing something different. Also, who's grading my life? There's no one who should be grading my life. It's my life. I can do what I want with it. Learning to let go of other people's expectations of you, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If I could tell myself that 20,000 times as a 16-year-old, I think I would have been a lot more relaxed going through the next 10 years of my life. Letting go of any failures. As Natalie said, I did not become an engineer. I thought I was going to be, and physics kicked my butt. And I was like, you know what? It's not happening. And I'm glad you went through it. I think for me, it was a sign that this is not for you. And that was because I was doing something that I did not want to do. And I think I was holding on to what I think I should be doing, even if I was seeing all the signs that I'm not happy with this.
yeah.
Then sometimes it's hard to read those signs and move forward. So really just letting go of past failures, also learning to reframe what a failure is, and also remembering to celebrate all your wins, because I think we get used to racking up all our failures and not racking up our wins. And then we constantly look at ourselves like, what are we doing and why are we here? Imposter syndrome, basically. But yeah.
I feel like you got a book you working on. What's going on right
I
now?
could write a book one day. I can't write like that though. I just like talking.
I got you. No, that's really good right there. The importance of letting go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Natalie, any advice that you would like to offer to any of youth that may be watching?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say if you're even watching this in the first place, before college, I never watched anything like this. I never really took that much time to think about my career, and I think it's really important. And it's you should all be very proud of yourself that you're even here and learning about this information. So let's celebrate that, I guess, after this call. But I guess an advice would be to know that your career is important, but it's not your whole entire part of your life, and to try to really enjoy other aspects of yourself, because it'll also make you a better worker, even though that's not the point of life. But when you're just constantly thinking about working in your career and everything, you're not going to do well. So yeah, just focus on other things in your life that you love, like music for me, or painting really helps me. And I think, yeah. But yeah, good job to everyone already here.
Thank you. Charles, to you, my sir, anything that you would like to add, any advice you'd be willing to give a youth?
Wow, these are some good ones to follow, some hard ones to follow.
Sorry.
Yeah, snaps go out to Alex and Natalie for those.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, some of the advice that I would give that hasn't already been said is don't be afraid to try something new.
Yeah.
I think we're all at DOE, and it's a new thing that we're all at DOE, right? It was a little bit scary. We're going from science, something that we were familiar with, to now working in a big bureaucracy. But we found opportunities and we found impact there. And it was because we dared to try something new, right? And so don't be afraid to make that leap, and trust your gut.
I appreciate that. I don't know. I've been thinking about going back to school. I'm trying to be like y'all when I grow up, man. So I'm taking your advice to heart personally right now. I'm writing down notes and stuff. Now, I really do appreciate you all, the insight that you've given, you all sharing your stories with us this evening. This has been wonderful. On a light note, looking at our time, we mentioned some things that you all like like to do, Natalie? You just mentioned music and painting. Outside of being some of the smartest people that we have in the country right now, right? What do you do to unwind? What do you all like to do for fun to help you with your mental state sometime? Let off that steam. We heard about the music and painting. Um, and I don't know, any poets out here, open mics, what kind of stuff y'all like to do for fun? Because there's more to life than just working. We got to find that balance.
I guess I'll go because I'm currently in a show right now. I do community musical theater, which is really great in the DMV area. There's a lot of other performers in the area, and the community is big and small at the same time. So I've made a lot of friends that way. I play video games a lot with my husband. We just really, really like playing video games, and I play with my cat, and we love eating food. So being in DC has been great for that. So we honestly plan most of our days around what restaurants we want to try next. So that's what I do for fun and unwinding in the area.
That's what's up. Thank you. Charles, what about you, man? We see the bike behind you. You staged that perfectly, right? Like he
Yeah,
knew.
like, can you guess what I like to do? No, I just want to piggyback off what Alex said, only because I did theater growing up, and I haven't actually been to any live theater in a long time. So maybe we need to connect after this. I can't carry a tune though to save my life, so I'm gonna just go ahead and throw that out there. But on a serious note, I think for me, unwinding is a lot of physical activity. I mean, I love being outside. I bike, no surprise. I'm a big runner, training for an ultra marathon coming up. So I'm
Ultra
literally
marathon?
yeah. I've got my
My
running clothes
marathon's
on
already
way
done.
down right
How do you
now.
make it ultra?
So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I also love to connect with folks. So, people at work, it's really good to like see them outside of the work setting and, to learn about some of their interests too. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Natalie, you mentioned that you like to paint. Is this art behind you? Is that yours, or is this just a collection?
Those are just vinyls, but I do have art on the other side. Yeah, I'm trying to start to make like painting videos because everyone's like they want to see like the process of me painting. So we'll see. But I'm also learning, this is really funny and everyone's making fun of me for it, but I'm learning how to DJ right now. So trying to do that on the weekends. Yeah, so it's just fun to try and learn new things that aren't like work related, I think. So yeah.
Well, thank y'all for sharing this with us. That's cool. Like, there's so many different sides to people, and oftentimes when you hear what a person does, you think that's all that they do. That's all that they are. So thank you. We can be well-rounded folks. We can come from a bunch of places, and we can overcome long lists of life's challenges. Shelly, do you have any questions you would like to ask our panel tonight?
So I guess the only thing that I think might be beneficial, because you guys have covered so many fantastic areas that I think kids might be thinking about. The one thing is if you could go back to yourself in, call it late middle school, early high school, and give just one little nugget of wisdom, what would that be? Just like a one-liner, Natalie, or like, Natalie, don't do this, or definitely do that.
Got to think about that one for a second, right? That's a hard question. A one-liner?
I would say mine is let it go and go to sleep. Be for me.
I like that. Let it go and go to sleep.
It's not that serious.
I have no idea. That might be what I tell my seventh grade self. I have no idea. Adults are all making it up. That's probably what I would tell my seventh grade self.
That's a great reminder, because I think when kids are looking at the adults in their world, it does seem like we have the answers. We knew what we wanted to do. We had a plan. And even as we as adults talk about where they are now in their history, it sounds like they knew more than maybe they did as they journeyed into adulthood. So
Yeah.
those are all great reminders for viewers in the age categories for our
Yes.
population, is that you don't have to have all the answers, and whatever happens, you're going to pivot and you're going to make choices, and you're going to be okay. And so
Mhm.
those are excellent reminders. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your wisdom and your journey, because I think it's super beneficial for our students to hear about it. So thank you.
So much. We appreciate you all. Charles, Alex, Natalie, y'all are wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. This is
for having
good.
us.
Thank you.
Of course. Everybody, we appreciate you all for joining us for this webinar, STEM journeys from students to professionals. Remember, don't take things too seriously. Learn to let some of this stuff go, because the challenges that you face now are going to pass. It all is going to work out for us. Just keep on pushing, everybody. Thank you all, and stay tuned for the next webinar that we'll be doing. We appreciate you. Peace, everyone.